Julia Jackson, welcome to Climate Action Live.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeremy. It's a pleasure.
Julia, you're the founder of Grounded. Could you tell us about your mission and your latest work?
Thank you, Jeremy. My mission is quite simple. It's to be building a coalition of regenerators that are trying to safeguard the future from the climate crisis. And um, I love my community. I love everyone that I've worked with, whether other organizations that I've supported or my teams, just working with the most incredible people that are on a mission, really to make sure that we have a livable future for humanity.
Thank you, Julia. It's June 2024. What's your assessment of the current situation in relation to our journey of protecting our planet and the people?
So the current situation, to be totally frank, and I don't mean to be doom and gloom, is quite dire. The latest UN report says that we have 2 years to turn around the climate crisis. But if you're just paying attention to the scientists in the IPCC report, and you're not actually aware that there's all the solutions we need to turn around this crisis, then it can seem pretty doom and gloom. So my mission really is to accelerate, fund, support solutions to mitigating the worst impacts of the climate crisis. I don't believe we can fully turn it around, but we can make it more of a soft landing than a hard landing. And right now we're heading towards a pretty hard landing.
So it brings me on to a phrase: no climate action, no peace. Could you talk to me about what you think when you hear that statement?
What I think with no climate action, no peace as a statement is hundreds of millions of climate refugees because of climate breakdown and wet bulbs, making it an uninhabitable earth. And so we're going to have a lot of climate refugees on the move. We're also going to have a lot of famine, food system collapse. This is if we continue business as usual and don't try and mitigate the worst impacts or turn this around. We'll also see wars at unprecedented scale. So on the other hand, no climate action, no peace. When I think of peace, I think of living in harmony with nature, living with deep respect, living with regeneration as a main principle, really seeing ourselves as stewards for multiple generations to come. And so when you go about living in deep reverence for Mother Earth, and you also uplift the communities that already have that way of seeing, like indigenous communities, then we can totally achieve world peace. I really believe that. I'm an eternal optimist. But if we see nature as a commodity to extract from, we're not going to have peace. Because if we commit ecocide and continue to destroy the earth, we're breaking down our chances of survival as a species.
Given the global crisis that's unfolding, Julia, do you think that we have the ability to stand together as one to protect our planet and each other? Do we have the ability to do that?
Absolutely. We have the ability to band together as a species and turn this around. I remain optimistic. There's a book that one of my mentors, Paul Hawken, helped write, and it's called Regeneration: Ending the Climate Crisis in One Generation. It's actually on my bookshelf. And it goes into a plethora of solutions that can help turn this crisis around. So I remain optimistic. Human ingenuity is amazing. I think human beings are amazing. I think that we're so wired to just continue on business as usual because our brains aren't wired to think of an existential crisis that a lot of people think of as like 20 years away. So I think as the climate crisis gets a lot worse in people's backyards and it becomes more personal to them, then there will be a tipping point of human action and agency. I feel that coming. And for me, I lost my home to the Kincaid fire. So I've lived the climate crisis quite personally. And that was really a wake-up call and turning point for me around, okay, the climate crisis is here. It's hit my backyard. and what can I do as a second generation proprietor of Jackson Family Wines with some liquidity as an individual that cares about the earth? How can I be investing in solutions to solving the climate crisis and building community around human beings that want to solve the climate crisis? And there's an incredible community out there. I really do believe in the power of our entire movement as an environmental movement, and I believe in the power of people. And so when you ask, can we band together? We have no choice, really, but I remain optimistic that there will be a social tipping point where humanity wakes up and wants to do whatever they can.
Excellent, Julia. I mean, on that point, what advice would you give to people to make the most impactful contribution?
I think it totally depends on your community. And so in terms of making an impactful contribution on the climate crisis, a lot of people feel helpless and hopeless, but there's simple actions you can take. You can go to Ecocide, stopecocide.org, and sign up to become an earth protector. You can vote if you're in the US or around the world. Vote for politicians that actually understand that we're in a climate crisis and in an ecological collapse. Vote for politicians that are stewards of the earth and not just talking about the problem, but want to actually take action. Pressure your local officials, elected officials. Also, you can divest from fossil fuels. Sometimes a lot of the times our banks are heavily invested in loans to the oil and gas industry. And so if you divest, you can really make a huge difference. And also being more conscious of what you consume. Eat more plant-based, because meat, industrial animal agriculture is one of the largest contributors to the climate crisis, especially with deforestation in the Amazon and replacing it with cattle pasture. So making more conscious decisions. Lastly, you can learn about native plants in your local community. Native plants are your biggest heroes and allies. And my friend Mary Reynolds with We Are the Ark, ARC standing for Acts of Restorative Kindness to Nature. You can check out wearetheark.org. Find a native plant nursery in your community. And if you have land, if you don't have land, no problem. Plant as many native plants as you can, because native plants equal biodiversity, carbon sequestration, happy pollinators. So that's one of the biggest things you can do. If you don't have land, you can even just plant native plants in your windowsill. And so pollinators can stop by and pollinate, and it's a stopover zone for pollinators if you live in a city.
Amazing. Julia, if people want to find out about Grounded, where do they go for more information?
You can go to www.grounded.org and reach out to us. More than happy to have people join our movement. And you can follow Grounded on Instagram. We have Instagram. My Instagram is Julia K. Jackson. And we also have a whole constellation of orgs that my role really is not just Grounded. My role is, how can I lift up multiple organizations at the same time? Ground is just one piece of the puzzle that I founded, but I also feel like deep collaboration is needed in this space if we're to make it. So deep collaboration in the environmental movement in terms of drawing down atmospheric carbon, changing legislation, and mitigating emissions. So I'm a fan of not just supporting and championing Grounded, of course, my own organization, but multiple other organizations, because that's the only way we'll make it out alive, is deep collaboration.
Finally, before we go, is SOS another organization? Tell me about that t-shirt.
This is actually a Stella McCartney shirt. I just happened to walk in her store, and she's an eco-conscious fashion designer. One of the only ones, actually, and the fashion industry contributes to roughly, I think, 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So I love that she's more sustainable. SOS, she just decided to put on her shirt. I've never met Stella, but thank you, Stella, for creating this, because we're in an SOS moment. And so Yeah, I love that she has it on her shirts. I have a sweatshirt as well that says it.
Julia, that's amazing. In fact, Stella did one of the first ever T-shirts. I'll give you one. I've got a few left. When you come over, I'll give you one. Stella McCartney did a beautiful Peace One Day T-shirt. And actually, you must meet Nicholas, who is the founder of Mover, plastic-free sportswear, who in fact is the sponsor behind Climate Action Live. He's a very interesting man.
Oh, amazing. Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a feeling that we're going to do some deeper collaboration as my family, Jackson Family Wines, has a partnership now. We're the main wine partner of the WNBA and the NBA. So getting more sports players into climate action is also going to be one of my missions. Yeah, I think my mission too is to find a bridge, not just with science and solutions, but with the cultural piece of the climate movement. How do we call in people with massive platforms to start talking about climate, but also championing the solutions?
Julia Jackson, Grounded, thank you so much for your time today and the very best of luck on your mission.
Thank you so much, Jeremy.